Hello and welcome to the Labor Jawn podcast, where we talk about all the things that have to do with the labor history and the working class history and just general history of Philadelphia and the surrounding world, especially today on what would have been Cesar Chavez's 98th birthday. So we like to remind you to not buy scab grapes. But what, Gabe?
It looked like UFW was out picketing somewhere today.
Ooh, keeping the memory alive. I like it. Well, as we just found out, your name is Gabe, my name is Sam, and today we're going to learn about something very special. I have no idea what it is, but apparently there's a slideshow that I'm watching at the moment, and we never tried this before, but I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. We're trying something new. But yeah, my name's Gabe. And yeah, so today we're going to learn about the 1902 Anthracite strike.
Ooh.
And the important thing to note is, you know how we're like maybe a month away, if not slightly less time away from no longer having any federal labor law or like mediation or anything.
That's all good, Gabe.
Yeah. So we had about slightly over 120 years of federal labor mediation, but this was the first time. So we're going to learn about it now.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. Let's do it.
All right. So first, we need to get an understanding of where all this is happening.
Whoa, that looks like a state that I'm fairly familiar with, Gabe.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commonwealth.
Yes, this is Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And today we're going to be talking about the anthracite fields.
Ooh.
Which is all the pink stuff.
Everybody who's listening and not watching, that's the area that's more middle to north to eastern Pennsylvania.
Yeah, if you look at a map of where the Appalachians run through Pennsylvania, the anthracite fields are on the western half or like the western edge of the Appalachians. The bituminous fields, which is the other type of coal, are on the other side of the Appalachians over by Pittsburgh.
Yes.
So we're talking about, or the anthracite is like Hazleton, Wilkes-Barre, Carbon County, PA, Schuylkill, PA, Shamokin, Shenandoah, all those places.
The Poconos.
Yeah, yes. Jim Thorpe, all anthracite areas.
Awesome.
And we'll take a closer look on the next slide. That was the wrong button. We'll take a closer look on the next slide.
We've already realized that this is far too advanced for us. A slideshow from 1998 PowerPoint presentation is too advanced for Labor Jawn in 2025.
It really is. Well, wait a second. I have to draw some lines here.
Oh, God. For everybody playing the home game, this is going to be really tough for you, the next hour of this.
So we now, for those who can't see, we now have a zoomed in map of the anthracite region. And you can see there's some big swathy strips of land here of darkened areas. That's where all the anthracite fields are.
Yeah, huge tracts of land.
Yes. And what you might notice is that there's all these little dark lines.
Squigglies.
Yeah, that kind of look like rivers. But what those actually are railroads.
Oh, okay.
And so the way the anthracite region worked was basically all of the coal was mined out of the mountains, put onto railroads, and then shipped down to either down south to Philly or up north to New York City. And it was just a massive extraction system to take all of the coal out of northwestern or northeastern PA.
Daddy, won't you take me back to Newburgh County or down the Green River where paradise lays? Well, I'm sorry, my son, but you're too late in asking. Mr. Peabody's coal train has hauled it away.
It's like people knew about this back in the day.
Yeah.
And wrote songs about it. So the other side of it is that a lot of the railroads also owned some of the coal mines.
Oh, no.
So that's where you get like the Reading Coal Company, which was wholly unaffiliated with the Reading Railroad, despite being owned by the same people.
Fine businesses.
Yeah.
How dare you trample the name of our entrepreneurs of this great country, Gabe?
Yeah. They're good, fine, upstanding citizens. But this also basically meant that when you were in the coal fields, your only real connections to the outside world were through those rail lines, which also just happened to be owned by your employer, or had a very strongly vested interest in keeping your employer happy because they needed to, or your employer was their primary customer.
Yeah, I see nothing wrong with this. Moving on, Gabe.
Yep, no problems here. All right, now, why were they moving all of this coal out? Because this is where anthracite becomes very different from bituminous coal. So anthracite coal is much denser and much harder, and also burns a lot cleaner, as opposed to bituminous coal, which has a lot more like tarry oiliness to it. So
that's the reason why Pittsburgh is the way it is.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
The smog around Pittsburgh was in large part because of bituminous coal. Not that, Philly and New York didn't also have smog.
Yeah, right. It was a cleaner smog.
Yeah, well, we were just importing bituminous coal from Pittsburgh. But so anthracite coal was used for home heating and cooking.
Okay.
Because by the middle of the 19th century, we had just about clear cut all of the forests.
Awesome.
So that was great. So we didn't have any wood to burn to heat all of the houses that were now popping up. That got replaced with anthracite coal. By the turn of the 20th century, you did start to have pressurized gas lines showing up in houses, so you could have gas-powered stoves and heaters as well. But coal was still very common.
Yeah.
And it was cheap and readily available. They also, in the Sears catalog, they had gasoline-powered stoves, which was just my absolute favorite invention. You had like a 5-gallon gas tank hanging on your wall.
Awesome.
Over the open flame of your stove with a little copper pipe leading down. So you'd fill up a little basin with gasoline and that.
Oh, God.
Yep. It was great. But more importantly for the story of the anthracite and the strike, the fact that home heating and cooking used anthracite coal meant that the end user wasn't industry. So like with bituminous coal, a lot of that was going to be used in industrial processes for smelting iron, making big industrial things.
Yeah.
And that usually meant that while the big companies would be willing to spend a little bit, or would be upset about having to spend more money during a strike when prices went up, it wasn't like the end of the world for them.
Sure.
But with anthracite coal, if prices go up, then at least the poor people, the poorer end of society, sorry?
Who? The poor people?
The poors. They do exist.
Dregs of society, Gabe.
Yeah.
Dregs of society.
They
First
wouldn't be.
first time ever being brought up on the Labor John podcast.
Yeah. Famously not ever discussed before. But then you'd have large groups of people who couldn't afford home heating or cooking fuel for the winter.
Yeah.
So that would be bad.
Well, you burn your youngest child, I believe.
Yeah.
I believe that was the custom back then.
Yes, usually. That's why you had like 25.
Exactly. Yeah.
And why kids were just more flammable back then. Well, let's go back. Can't handle slides.
A spoiler alert. I just found out the end of the episode. They actually do burn the children.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Well, not at home. In other places they do.
Oh God. Okay.
So the other part here is that 1902 had the midterm elections, and when people, do you know how people are or have been upset about the price of gas when it was politically convenient to be upset about the price of gas?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. Despite the fact that gas prices have kind of continued to go up, at least in Philly.
Yeah.
But so coal prices going up during a midterm campaign or midterm election season were really bad for whatever party was in charge.
Yeah.
So just bear that in mind.
We're simple people, Gabe.
Yeah.
You can only think of one thing at a time when it comes to election season.
Yes.
One-tracked mind.
That is definitely a running theme here. All right. Now, all that coal had to get taken out of the ground by somebody. And that's where coal miners come in.
Hey. Okay.
So...
Easy job.
Yeah.
Easy job.
Very easy job. Everyone loved doing it. And you got to have like nice haircuts and have I'm assuming he's getting his hair colored in an underground salon. Is what's happening in this picture on the left here.
Okay.
Yeah.
For everybody playing the home game, I have no idea what I'm looking at right now. It's just very dark and dirty and scary, and I never want to be in this place.
That's a coal mine.
Hey, there we go. There we go.
So underneath all the mountains in the anthracite, there were huge complexes of coal mines that would have usually multiple shafts all going down into different seams, and they were it was like a big industrial center all underground.
Yeah.
The work was mostly done by going in and you would blast out a section of the seam, then come in afterwards and with pickaxe and shovels break up all of the blasted rock and debris, then sort through that, load the good coal onto mule-drawn carts, and then little like 8 and 10-year-old children, probably slightly older than that. They're probably like 12 or 14.
The fact that you said children, Gabe, it's just children.
Yeah, they were children.
Yeah, humans. Let's extend that, okay?
Yeah.
Humans are doing this job.
Which
is fucking crazy.
Yeah. Also, like, mules don't deserve to be underground 24/7.
Fuck the humans. God damn, that poor mule. Mm-hmm. He does not want to be there. He wants to be in some pasture eating grass.
Yeah.
Me too, mule.
Honestly, yeah. Maybe not right now with the crazy thunderstorm coming in, but yeah, so you would take the coal out, sort it, or first you would break everything up, load the coal onto a cart, mules would take it out. Once it was out, it would then go into what were called breakers, which were these like big towers where it would get continually broken down into smaller pieces and sifted. And in those breakers, you had this is where the 8 to 12-year-olds were working.
Yep, there they are. The Breaker Boys.
The Breaker Boys.
How you doing, guys?
And for those at home, not able, or those just listening,
It's children.
It's a big group of kids all sitting basically on a chute, and Cole and Slate would come down the chute, and they would have to pick out the slate and throw it away so that only good, clean burning coal came out at the end.
Hey, I had a summer job, you know.
Yeah,
I worked at Rita's, you know how it is. You know how it is. You had a paper route, same thing. Kids these days, you know what I mean, Gabe?
Yeah. I mean, you are slightly less likely to get silicosis and black lung working, well, depending on the Ritas.
You don't know what goes in that green apple mist, though.
It's true.
That gelato, no.
Ooh. I've seen some Ritas with questionable working conditions.
Oh, we're not good. No, Gabe, we don't need to be sued this week.
That's true.
That's for next week.
Oh, and they're open now, so
yeah. So
the Rita's monster is alive.
Yes.
So that's how the extraction worked.
Awesome.
Basically, and then once the Breaker Boys were done with it, it would then get loaded onto train cars, shipped all around.
Gabe, one question: I do not see the owner of the mines or the railroads in these pictures. Are they slightly out of frame somewhere?
From what I've been able to tell, and what we'll get into in a little bit, it doesn't seem like they visited the mines very often, if
strange.
ever.
What are they doing then, Gabe?
They're coordinating, having meetings, very important meetings. And
you got to have a meeting, Gabe.
12-year-old Scotch doesn't drink itself, so someone has to do that job.
The Scotch is older than half of the kids in these pictures, Gabe.
Oh, God.
It was a good Scotch, though. It was a good Scotch.
Yeah, it was good Scotch.
It'll probably last longer than these children, too.
Honestly, yeah. And
God damn it, we're only 20 minutes into this episode.
Okay, so then the other side of it is you're underground, often using explosives.
Yeah.
Cave-ins were fairly common. People were getting injured quite a bit. And that's actually why on the left-hand side here, there's a guy getting his head and arm bandaged up in an underground infirmary.
Oh God.
Which was probably one of like the most, thinking about like haunted places on Earth, a mineshaft infirmary is probably one of the most haunted places on Earth.
Damn.
Yeah, so they had like whole complexes down there. And when you were working in the mines, you were generally working at least a 10-hour day.
Damn.
Often longer.
Damn.
And I'd also like to point out, while the two pictures that we have here of the mines, they seem rather spacious. This is in like the more developed part of the mine where the actual coal seams are. You can kind of see it in this one picture with the mules where you see a bunch of lights on the other side.
Yeah, it's very dark though.
Yeah. That's more so what the working conditions were like.
That looks like hell, Gabe.
Yep.
That looks like hell.
Pitch black and cramped, and like you might walk into, or you might come up on a pocket of methane gas that explodes.
Oh my God. Especially when you're wearing fire on your hat. Yes.
Yeah, because all of the lights they were using were mini acetylene torches. So
safe work conditions. OSHA, you were not needed here.
Nope. They didn't even exist for another 60 some odd years.
That's great. That's awesome. Good for these guys.
All right. So next slide. Now we're going to talk about some folks that tried to fix all of those issues that we just talked about.
I saw no problems, Gabe.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Well, these uppity miners disagreed with you.
Okay. We can agree to disagree.
Yes, we can agree to disagree about whether miners deserve to live. Enlightened centrism, as always on this podcast. So the United Mine Workers of America,
There we go.
or
Yeah.
the UMWA,
Yay.
was founded in 1890 by mostly Midwestern bituminous coal miners.
Oh, okay. Midwestern Pennsylvania you're talking about?
No, Midwest as in like
Oh.
Midwest of the U.S.
Oh, okay. All right.
And also Appalachian
Sure.
bituminous miners. So that like Kentucky, West Virginia, up to Eastern PA, and
where
then,
my parents were born.
Mhm.
There's a backwoods old town. There's often. I'm sorry. We can just do the whole John Prine song instead of doing the rest of this goddamn story.
I mean, I am actually kind of surprised there isn't a John Prine song. Well, we're too far west or east of the Appalachians.
Yeah.
For John Prine to be singing about this, even though this, like these are still the Appalachian foothills. But anyway, so John Mitchell, bituminous coal miner from Illinois, got elected as the UMWA president in 1898. Is that very attractive man on the right here?
Oh God, Gabe. This man.
So he recognized that the bituminous coal fields were supplying all the heavy industry and railroad, but they hadn't organized the over 100,000 anthracite miners.
Whoa!
Over in Eastern PA. I should also point out that, to my knowledge, the Pennsylvania anthracite is the only source of anthracite in North America.
Really?
Or at least in the continental U.S.
Okay.
I think there might actually be some in Canada.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
And it's also the same, basically like the same strain of anthracite that's in Wales.
Yeah.
Which is convenient because a lot of the immigrant miners that came over were Welsh. So at least early on.
Eden miners.
Yeah.
There we go. Boy.
So, I mean, if you want to talk about singing.
There we go.
So
3-hour long poems.
So Mitchell set the UMWA to organizing those 100,000 miners. And in 1900, they figured they had enough of a base that they could start negotiating for better wages.
Wow, okay.
So they started pushing for wages, hours, and conditions. The usual three.
Yeah, the usual three. Papa John's.
But the mine operators, surprisingly, had already organized themselves into what were called the coal combines.
Oh.
So basically, they were illegal trusts, but unofficial. So basically all of the coal companies agreed, like, none of us are going to negotiate with Mitchell.
Awesome.
Or with the UMWA. And anyone that breaks this agreement is going to get kicked out and basically ostracized. So they won't be able to, or even like the railroads won't take their coal because they negotiated with the miners.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was real mean.
Kicked out of a little clubby.
Yeah. So in response to
the Union Haters Club.
Yeah. In response to the mine operators refusing to negotiate, UMWA called a strike.
Awesome.
But they had only organized 9,000.
Oh, shit. That's significantly less than 100,000.
Yes.
Still a chunk, though. It's still a chunk. That's a lot.
It's some.
Honestly, that's a lot of people to organize.
Yes. Especially, like, organizing 9,000 people literally on foot.
Seriously.
And, like, maybe sending some letters.
Yeah. So kudos to that, but I mean, that's, Yeah. It's a fighting uphill here.
Well, they're in the mountains,
down a shaft. Well, there you go. There you
go. So those 9,000 miners walk out. And by the end of the first week, 101,000 other miners joined that initial 9,000.
Whoa! Are you kidding me?
Yep.
Whoa!
So they finished the first week with 110,000 striking miners.
Damn.
This scared all the railroad owners shitless.
Holy shit! That scared me.
Yeah. Along with all of their political friends.
Good.
Yes. And so this was coming up on McKinley's election in 1900.
Oh, McKinley Holland, McKinley squad. I got a song for everything, Gabe. Doc says, McKinley, I can't find that ball from Buffalo to Washington. I'm a fucking folk singer, Gabe. This is my life, man.
I mean, anyway, all right. So,
spoiler alert.
They were worried that the lack of home heating would freak out the voters, and then McKinley might lose the election.
Can't have that.
Nope. So this guy named J.P. Morgan.
Oh, God, no.
Yep. His bank owned one of the railroads.
Of course it did.
So he came in and just casually encouraged all of the mine operators to give them some minor concessions. So the coal operators, after a month and a half, the miners won a minor wage increase.
A minor wage increase.
It's very difficult to not. Yeah,
it's fine, Gabe. It's fine. It's what I'm here for.
But
to derail everything.
Well, we're done talking about the railroads.
Yeah. Okay. God damn it.
But crucially, did not win union recognition.
Oh. Okay.
Nor did they win a system to adjust wages in the future. But more importantly for the UMWA, over the course of that strike, 200,000 new members signed up, both in the anthracite and in the bituminous fields.
Okay.
Because everyone was starting to get excited, like, once the anthracite gets organized, then we can do a general strike of all the mines.
Ooh.
And they started getting real excited about that.
Ooh. Yes, please.
So, now we're going to come up to 1902, by which point there were 78,000 card-carrying Union miners.
Good for you.
Across the 3 anthracite divisions now, which is UMWA divisions 1, 7, and 9.
All right.
Which basically that split up the 3 major sections of the anthracite. Now, in 1902, they were still facing basically all of the same conditions that they had been facing in 1900. So, terrible working conditions, children being forced to work, and very, very dangerous long hours.
Papa John's.
Their contract was set to expire on April 1st, 1902. And everybody
April Fool's Day?
Yep.
That sucks.
Yeah. So they knew a fight was going to come, but they weren't entirely sure when. And on March 18th, they called a meeting in Shamokin.
Okay.
And that was basically all of the delegates from each local mine, or from each union local, would meet in Shamokin. And they were going to start laying out their demands for the next contract negotiation. Just days before that meeting convened, they got word from the coal operators that they would not be negotiating a new contract.
Oh.
And instead, they'd be extending the current wage agreement from 1900 for another year.
Okay.
And you know how when your wages stay the same, but inflation goes up? How does that work, Sam?
The workers are going to be kind of fucked, Gabe.
Yeah, you end up getting less money. So they...
I like my description better, Gabe.
I mean, yeah. Yours is honestly more descriptive.
It's more colorful, at least.
So, understandably,
Jesus.
the delegates were real pissed off.
Good.
And so they all showed up to the meeting basically like ready to start a war.
Awesome.
And basically the meeting turned into a rally for a strike vote.
All right.
Now, John Mitchell was worried that he was still president of the UMWA. He was worried that if the anthracite strikes too early, then the bituminous fields won't be able to support them and won't be able to strike alongside them.
Okay.
So he's encouraging everyone, rather than like jumping to a strike right now, he's going to reach out to the National Civic Federation, or the NCF, to act as mediators between the miners and the owners. Basically, they wanted to like actually establish some protocol for how future wages are going to be decided.
All right.
Yeah, like he was doing the midnight or late 19th, early 20th century kind of progressive business unionism.
Yeah.
So the delegates agreed and they laid down their demands, which were an industry-wide reduction. So the whole anthracite industry.
Okay.
Reduction in hours from 10 to 8.
Fine.
Without a reduction in pay.
Fine.
They wanted a set minimum daily wage.
Fine.
A 23% raise in wages for contract workers, which is when some workers, depending on the mine, depending on how things were set up, would get paid by the amount of coal that they dug out every day.
Fine.
By weight. So they wanted a 23% increase in what you got paid per ton. They also wanted a say in how that coal was weighed.
Interesting.
And then finally, they wanted recognition of the union for collective bargaining.
Oh.
The usual.
This sounds good.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, those are very reasonable demands.
Yes.
So they sent those demands over through the National Civic Federation. And initially, the coal operators said, we're not going to negotiate with the workers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Pricks.
But they agreed to meet with the NCF and the miners in 1 month, so long as the miners did not strike and did not reduce the hours that they worked. So,
okay.
Yeah, basically they were calling for a month-long cool down, and then they could negotiate.
Okay. They got to check their books. They got to make sure that everything can line up. They make sure they get plenty of bonuses and vacation time for the owners and everything.
And then need to burn some ledgers before negotiations begin.
Yes.
Well, coal's about to get more expensive, so you got to burn ledgers to cook your dinner.
There we go.
All right, so the National Civic Federation brought the operators and the miners back together on April 26th to negotiate. These were the heads of the National Civic Federation.
Okay.
They were basically all leading progressive philanthropists and Sam Gompers.
There we go.
The
I knew he looked familiar.
Labor.
Yep.
So the NCF brought both the operators and the miners back together on April 26th. Miners laid out the exact same set of demands, but surprisingly, the operators refused to negotiate.
Huh.
Yeah.
What happened there? Doesn't seem like this is good faith here.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's happening here, buds?
So the miners negotiated themselves down to a 9-hour day,
Nah, come on.
a 10% wage increase, and the ability to weigh coal.
Okay.
Operators still did not respond.
Jesus.
Finally, the miners said that they would accept a 5% wage increase, and the operators said nothing.
Yo.
Yeah. So at this point,
honestly, the operators are playing the game pretty well here. The miners aren't.
Yeah. But at this point, the miner delegates were starting to get kind of pissed off.
Good.
And again started to discuss a strike.
Yeah.
Mitchell was still firmly against it, convinced that striking now would squander the gains that they had made in 1900.
Yeah, he's playing the long game. I understand.
The delegates debated the strike, and eventually it was decided that they'd stage a temporary work stoppage if the bosses didn't negotiate.
Okay.
So
that's a strike. That's a strike.
Yeah, the little mini practice strike.
Mini strike.
And they set the deadline for May 12th. So, on May 12th, miners walked off the job and the mine shut down. The only people allowed to stay were the maintenance and engineering workers, basically just to make sure that the mines didn't collapse or flood while the strike was
guys on. Holding up the fucking mines by hand.
Basically. Hopefully
we got to talk about it. This is the most important thing. How are the mules?
I was actually about to say that I hope that the mules were taken out of the mines. Honestly, knowing the mine operators, the mules were probably like the first thing taken out of the mine
and slaughtered. Well, they're probably, that's a goddamn $20 mule ride there.
Yeah, that's expensive equipment.
Yeah.
You take the mule and the mine cart out, and you can leave the miners down there while it floods, but the mule and the mine cart, you got to get out.
Almost lost a $15 hand card.
Mm-hmm. That and candygram for Mongo. So, temporary stoppage was going on.
Okay.
The delegates continued to debate whether or not to keep up the strike or just use it as a show of force. Finally, they convinced themselves to have a strike vote and voted 57% in favor to 43% against a strike.
Wow. Okay.
So, Anthracite strike was on. By June 2nd, it had expanded to include the maintenance workers and engineers.
Oh,
okay. Which pissed off the coal operators. So now the mines were completely abandoned and could theoretically collapse in on themselves. Now, before the strike started, both the miners had been working overtime so that they could save up some cash so that they could survive during the strike.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is that they were digging more coal, so the coal companies had a reserve of coal to sell off during the strike.
Interesting.
Yeah, so like both sides needed to do that, but it was also a matter of like how much who could make the extra stuff that they got or that they had been stockpiling last the longest at this
exactly.
point.
It's a game of attrition now.
Yeah. So both sides had stockpiled some of the reserves, but there was still the issue of the Republican Party needing to stay in power in the 1902 midterms. At this point, McKinley was dead. But
spoiler alert.
Sorry. He does get shot.
Doc says, McKinley, I can't find that ball.
His vice president, Teddy Roosevelt, comes into power.
All right.
So they were very worried that the just an increase in coal prices, not even like the inability to get coal, would tank their election chances.
123 years later, nothing has changed. We are
It really fucking
we are the
hasn't.
same species. We're the same people. We're the same.
The
Nothing
only
has
difference
changed.
is that we don't have like it's now random multinational conglomerates
Yeah.
just like pushing the price go up button rather than people striking for better wages, hours, and conditions.
Yeah.
So I would actually say rather than the same, it's gotten worse.
I'm sorry. Is this our cheeriest episode, Gabe? Or is that the
So
next
far,
one?
yeah.
Oh, this is the cheeriest. Okay, this is the best
Yeah.
one. All right, good. I'm just making sure.
So in part out of his own sense of like altruistic white saviorism,
There we go.
and also out of political expediency,
There we go.
on June 8th, Roosevelt set his Secretary of Labor, Carroll D. Wright, it's the fellow on the left here.
Right's on the left.
Yep.
And on the left is the one on the right. I told you, I got a song for everything, baby.
And he was his own grandpa.
Wait a minute, what?
He was not, to my knowledge. So Carroll D. Wright was sent to investigate the situation in the coal fields and report back to him, because he needed to ensure that the mines reopened by the time election season really ramped up.
Because that's all that matters.
Yeah. Now, Wright,
silly election games that we play every 4 fucking years.
Some song about Patriot games.
Damn, I wish we still did songs at the end of the episode, Gabe.
So Wright avoided going to the coal fields, though, because he was worried that if he just showed up there, tensions were going to escalate very quickly, because both sides were immediately going to come up to him and be like, hey, you're here to help us, right?
I'm on a fact-finding mission.
Yeah. So instead, he set up an office in New York City, where he met with the owners of the coal railroads to get their unbiased opinion. Then he also did bring in John Mitchell to give the workers' side of the story.
All right.
He reported back to the president that both sides were telling very, very different stories.
Yeah.
Surprisingly. And that the owners were totally unwilling to negotiate, while the miners were fully open to arbitration.
All right. Yeah.
So it's kind of explaining like, hey, there's a side that is clearly in the right here.
Yeah.
But it's also 1902. So like the stack or the weights, the scale, thank you, is stacked very much against the miners already.
Of course.
So
who has the most money and power and land? Let's see. Yeah.
So he proposed a temporary solution of an experimental reduction in hours from 10 to 9 hours a day. So he proposed this reduction in hours for non-union men.
Oh.
And in exchange for everyone agreeing to arbitration. That proposal got sent up to Roosevelt, who then sent it to his Attorney General Philander Knox.
Okay.
Which is the best name. Who told him that this wasn't his problem. It's a local labor dispute. You shouldn't worry about it.
Oh. I think you're wrong there, Knox.
Yeah. Basically, everyone in the Republican Party kept telling Roosevelt, like, hey, don't worry about this. This is just a local thing. The president shouldn't worry himself about this.
Yeah, he shouldn't worry about the people that he's supposed to represent, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we're good.
And basically, Roosevelt became increasingly frustrated with his total inability to do anything about this. Because...
Respect.
Yeah. Every cabinet level person and every secretary just kept telling him, like, we can't really do anything. There's no laws about this. So I don't know. We don't have a plan. But while all that was happening, the strike was continuing to drag on. Speaking of scales. So while the strike continued, and it was mostly peaceful, there was one standout incident of violence. In Shenandoah, Pennsylvania, in July, miners were manning the picket lines, ensuring that no one entered the mines. Then Deputy Sheriff Thomas Bettle was escorting a group of non-union miners through the picket line. The miners spotted that one of the scabs had a bundle under his arm, which they grabbed and ripped away from him, found that it was a rolled-up pair of coveralls, which clearly indicated that he was going to go down and dig, rather than just doing, maintenance work.
Okay.
So all of the pickets attacked him.
Damn.
Bettle responded by emptying his revolver into the crowd.
Shit.
Striking 2 miners, one in the leg, one in the foot. Bettle and the scabs then took refuge in the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad Depot, which was very quickly surrounded by 5,000 angry miners.
Damn.
The entire police force of Shenandoah turned out to help Bettle.
7 guys.
Yeah, they're probably 7 guys, all of whom were brothers, showed up to help out Bettle.
Each other's grandfathers?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they all came out and backed a steam engine into the depot, so that they could hop on and escape. The strikers realized what was happening, because, you can't really, sneak a steam engine past a group of people. They're kind of big.
A getaway steam engine.
That's literally what they were doing. So they surrounded the engine as it was pulling out. The driver refused to move, so the cops again opened fire into the crowd.
No!
Yeah, which briefly broke ranks. So the engine started to pull away, and the rest of the crowd started throwing rocks at it and at the cops. The cops started retreating along with the steam engine, occasionally firing volleys back into the crowd.
Yeah.
And the crowd was throwing rocks at them the whole time. And this went on for a while until a freight train blocked the cops' escape. Because at least from the newspaper account that I was able to find, it seems like the steam engine had crossed the rail crossing, and then the freight train came by and trapped all of the cops on the same side with the angry mob of 5,000 strikers.
No.
And I should also point out, at this point, 20 of that 5,000 person mob had been shot. So the other 4,980 were really pissed off.
I'm sure the 20 were kind of pissed off as well, Gabe.
Yeah.
They couldn't keep up with the crowd, but they were pretty pissed off.
Yeah. So 2 of the cops got or were grabbed and beaten by the angry mob. The rest managed to escape. By the end of the fighting, there were dozens of wounded, a few dead, surprisingly only a few.
Okay.
At which point, the state militia was called in to quell the violence. And then the UMWA actually put up flyers everywhere condemning the violence and telling everyone to calm down, go back to the picket line. We don't do this.
Yeah.
I
mean, what was in that bundle?
Yeah. I won't say it wasn't fully justified here. We don't condone violence, but
man got overalls. Can't have that.
Nope. So, next slide here. So the strike continued on throughout the whole of the summer, and then actually into October, getting very, very close to a November election here.
Oh.
So everyone's starting to get really, really nervous. Also getting nervous that as the colder months start coming in, people are going to start buying up more and more coal for home heating.
Mm-hmm.
So far, they've mostly just been buying it for cooking.
For funsies.
Yeah. So on October 3rd, Roosevelt held a conference of 10 men involved in the strike, including Mitchell. So it was both bosses, and then basically Mitchell was just the representative of all the miners.
Yeah.
Mitchell took his invitation to the White House as de facto federal recognition of the Union.
Okay.
And he came there fully expecting to arbitrate a negotiation. He figured that's what must be happening. The president is calling me to the White House.
Sure.
Like, that's a big deal. So he got there, and instead, the coal operators just verbally berated him.
Damn.
Calling him a fomenter of anarchy.
Oh.
And telling Roosevelt he should just send out the troops to force everyone back to work.
Okay.
It should be noted at this point that George Baer was one of the coal barons. Actually, he's the guy on the last slide, on
the tiny one?
The tiny one up on the scale.
Okay.
So George Baer said that the rights and interests of the laboring man will be protected and cared for, not by the labor agitators, but by the Christian men to whom God, in his infinite wisdom, has given the control of the property interests of the country.
Ew.
Yeah.
Bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah. So basically, he was declaring that he had a divine right to own the mines.
Jesus. And own probably the workers as well.
Yeah.
It is your divine right to work in my mine.
Yeah. So people started calling him George the Last. And there's lots and lots of political cartoons of him as King George.
I love it.
So on October 6th, Roosevelt wrote to Mitchell asking that the UMWA returns to work while he establishes an arbitration committee.
Oh, God.
Mitchell was hesitant because he believed that the miners would reject the proposal.
Yeah.
And
I mean, they've been like, one more month. Yeah, one more month. The operators will definitely, yes.
Yeah, this whole time.
They'll come to the table in 1 month.
And they also knew that, like, their leverage was only getting stronger and stronger as the winter got closer.
Yeah.
Because that's when everyone's going to be needing coal.
Mm-hmm.
The proposal got sent out to the delegates, because the one thing I will say about the UMWA and all of this is that they were a fairly democratic organization for 1902.
All right.
And, like, Mitchell wasn't making unanimous decisions. He was giving his guidance for the most part, but any actual decision regarding the strike was sent to the delegates for a vote.
Okay.
So the delegates refused to return to the mines without a concession from the bosses first. So Roosevelt was back at the starting point trying to figure out, how the fuck do I get these people to talk to each other? Or really accurately, how the fuck do I get these coal barons to negotiate at all?
To be human.
Yeah.
For a second. Just a second, guys.
So then his Secretary of War, a guy named Elihu Root. That's Elihu, which is a fantastic name.
Okay.
He had an idea. he'd reach out to his friend, J.P. Morgan,
fuck me.
to see if they could come up with a solution. So
let's ask more people with fucking money.
Yeah.
That's it.
Literally like the wealthiest man on earth at this point. So Root and Morgan met on Morgan's yacht.
Oh, good start, guys.
Yep, that's where all the best ideas come from. And came up with an arbitration proposal. They would have a commission of 5 men who would, in a fact-finding mission, review the conditions of the mining country. Then the operators would negotiate with Mitchell, not as the president of the... Mitchell would not be negotiating as president of the UMWA,
All right.
but merely as a representative of each individual miner.
Jesus.
Some really annoying bullshit. But basically, they just utterly refuse to acknowledge that the union exists.
Yeah.
So Mitchell conceded on union recognition, knowing that this was still the first time that the owners had ever agreed to any amount of arbitration.
Mm-hmm.
But he asked that a labor man be put on the commission. So the final commission was made up of a military engineer, a mining engineer, a judge, an expert in the coal business, and an eminent sociologist.
What? Okay.
The eminent sociologist that they picked was the head of the Railway Conductors Union, a guy named E.E. Clark.
All right.
He was just a conductor that had worked his way up and become president of the union.
Okay.
But so like they had a good old labor guy on the commission. That's what they wanted. And the joke was, or the commentary on it was that was probably the first time that E.E. Clark had ever heard the words eminent or sociologist. Was when he was asked to come do this job. So over the next 3 months, the commission reviewed the situation in the mines and in the mining towns. And while the commission was ongoing, the miners finally agreed to call off the strike because they got arbitration. So, which is what that's what they had been striking for in the beginning. They were just trying to force the boss to the table.
Yeah.
But over the next 3 months, the commission reviewed the situation in the mines and the mining towns. They listened to the accounts of 558 witnesses.
Wow.
240 witnesses from the union miners, 153 from non-union miners, and 154 from the owners. And in the end, they basically both sided it. So the union was asking for a 20% raise increase. By the end of the negotiations, the commission suggested a 10% for most miners.
Okay.
The union had asked for an 8-hour day. The commission recommended 9 hours.
All right.
Yeah, just like still progress. But the one major thing that they got, even without union recognition, was an arbitration committee of 6 men that was established that would work to resolve future disputes and future contracts.
Okay.
But the other part of this is that the commission had a pretty broad scope of what it could look at, which included child labor and private police forces.
Oh.
So in their review of that, they came to the conclusion that a more conciliatory disposition in the operator and their employees in their relations towards one another would do a better and a more lasting work than any which mere rulings, however wise or just, may accomplish. So their solution to children being forced to work down the mines and private police forces terrorizing the miners were, can't we all just get along?
Fine.
Well, the commission had a somewhat lackluster report. This was one of the first times that a federally mandated commission came in and acted as a third-party mediator between the mines, or between bosses and workers.
Yeah.
A tradition that has lasted in this country probably up until like tomorrow. So
oh man,
it's been fun for those listening at home. The image up on screen is a bunch of very fancy men and one lady getting into a minecart that is actually pulled by a tiny little steam engine that's really cute to go down the mines. Because this is the other big thing, is that they actually brought all the fancy lads down into the mines to look at the conditions. Rather than just trusting what the bosses were saying of like, yeah, I don't necessarily know where the mine is. I've only ever seen it on paper, but I'm sure the conditions are great. But yeah, so that was the 1902 anthracite strike.
Well,
and
damn, Gabe.
Just about the first time that there was a federal arbitration commission.
We're fucked, Gabe.
Yeah, a little bit.
Play us out, Sam.
Play us out, Sam.
We're bringing the goddamn songs back.